You're listening to Heart of the Ark podcast from the Office for Evangelization in the Archdiocese of Newark. We're coming to you to bring knowledge and some courage as we voyage through this life as missionary disciples of our Lord Jesus Christ. My name is Jennifer Benke, and I'm co-hosting this podcast with my friend and colleague, Father John Gordon.
Jennifer Benke here. As I work to edit this podcast episode, I recognize that there are subjects covered in my conversation with Dr. Walker that need a content warning. Topics contained or alluded to in this conversation include mental health crises, drug and alcohol abuse, physical or mental abuse, self-harm, and suicide. Sensitive audiences should be aware that this conversation may not be appropriate for all. Dr. Walker does give the number to the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline in this episode, but I wanted to highlight that number is 988 for the United States and for Canada, and help is available in English and Spanish. So sensitive audiences, please be aware. Hello and welcome to the Heart of the Ark podcast. My name is Jennifer Benke. I'm the Associate Director of the Office for Evangelization at the Archdiocese of Newark. And today I am joined by Dr. Howard Walker. We're here on location. So listeners, if our audio sounds a little bit different, we're here in elementary school in East Orange where Dr. Walker is the principal. How are you doing today?
Okay.
Good.
Thank you. This is a new experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's okay. We're all about new experiences. One of the catch lines of the podcast is trying to give people knowledge and courage for the voyage as missionary disciples. So I wanted to speak to you today because I was graced by the fact that you sent me your book that you've been working on, Live Life Well. And I think that it speaks right to where we are as a podcast, how we're trying to give people courage for life. So thank you for agreeing to be here.
Thank you. Well, thank you for coming, since I'm here every day.
Yes, okay. Absolutely. My mom always says, it's nice being had, right? Like, we loved having you. Well, it's nice being
when
had.
When I call my mother and she says, thank you for calling, I say, thank you for answering.
There you are.
Yes.
There you are.
Which at the age of 89 is near a miracle.
That is wonderful. Yeah, absolutely. We're here today to talk about this book, Live Life Well. Talk to me about the inspiration for the book and where you're from, where you're coming from.
The inspiration was my daughter was having difficulty with depression at one time, and I myself have suffered from a variety of ailments based on my difficult childhood, and so I was writing something that I hoped that she would read and that would help her to resolve any anxiety she was feeling or any depression she might be having, and other maladies of the mind.
Right. So it's literally a book about courage, right? It
could be viewed that way.
Right.
Yes.
So in terms of how to, face every day, you're Dr. Howard Walker, doctorate in education.
Educational administration. Yes.
Okay. So when did you start? You're a principal now. You told me you started in the Catholic schools. Now you're in public schools.
I was a principal back in the 80s and in the Catholic school, and then I came to East Orange as a supervisor in 1989. I became a principal in East Orange in 2003, and I'm now on my fourth school. I've had 2 elementary schools and 2 middle schools.
Wow.
So I've been in Langston Hughes since 2020.
Wonderful. Wow, that was a rough year, huh, as an educator. Lord, that was my one and only year in the classroom, was 2019 to 2020. And I was like, nope, I'm not that strong. So talk to me about the book. I know that it's got 10 chapters. Each one has kind of a different focus for how to kind of engage with your world.
Okay, well, first of all, it's not a book that I'm looking to sell.
Right.
Because I'm not interested in the money. I'm just interested in sharing the thoughts because I think it would help a lot of people. I'm 69 years old, and I learned a lot during those 69 years, and I'm hoping that I can get this book to younger people so that they don't have to go through all the stuff that I went through to get to the realizations that I've made. Mm-hmm. So some of the things I address are how to deal with grief, anxiety, guilt, depression, sadness, fear, and regrets. And I dealt with all those things in the book because I dealt with all those things in my real life. And so I managed to beat them all. And I've had a great adulthood to match my poor childhood. From 0 to 16, from birth to 16, I remember very little. Because I repressed that. I remember being suicidal at 9. And I remember thinking to myself, because my mother was raised, she was a Catholic convert, so she was raised on the Baltimore Catechism, which was a very strict way of dealing with Catholicism. And so she taught us that suicide would be a mortal sin. And teaching us that probably saved my life, because back at the age of 9, remembering very little of what was going on, I do remember saying that I'm not doing that, because whatever's going on in my life at the age of 9, hell would be worse. So I decided to spare my life.
Right.
And when my mother finally put my father out of the house at the age of 17, I was able to get some counseling. And the counseling is what I needed. It was about 8 years too late, but it was what I needed. And it's what helped me to become a very happy adult.
Yeah.
So I'm very, very thankful to God. I thank Him each and every day, because I've had a great adulthood. I would say I've had an above-average adulthood. But the childhood was very difficult.
Right. And I think that it's that 10th section that spoke most to me here with the Heart of the Ark podcast, because we really talk about that faith component of how people find strength in adversity, right? Like, it's not just Catholicism is not just a mental health idea. It's a real way of life, in order that we have a real relationship. We build a real relationship with Jesus Christ, and we come to understand our dependence upon Him in a foundational way, but in a way that is really freeing in the long run. So talk to me about how you got there through your adversity.
Well, as I say, I've learned a number of lessons. The first lesson, the most obvious lesson, is get counseling when you need it.
Yeah.
And give it to the children who need it. Being a principal, one of the things that I recommend to my parents is you might want to look into counseling, because I've been a middle school principal and I've been an elementary school principal. And I know what students look like if their counseling is delayed. They become more behavioral problems. They have difficulty adjusting to situations. If you get a child counseling early in life, it's liable to be preventive. It's going to prevent problems in the future. There are some people who, if you suggest counseling to a parent, they'll think that, well, there's nothing wrong with my child. Why would you suggest counseling? So I use my own person as an example, because hopefully you won't say there's something wrong with me.
Right.
I'm saying I wish I had gotten counseling at the age of 9, and it's the counseling that I've had that helped me to be as happy as I am. And then the parents react less negatively when you suggest counseling. Yeah. Because that's one thing, is get counseling when you need it, and to the children as much as you need it. If a child has a medical problem, you get them to a doctor quick enough. So if a child has an emotional issue, getting them to a counselor, and the right counselor. It took me a long time to find the right counselors for people, because you have to make sure you have the right counselor as well.
Yeah. So beyond counseling and developing a relationship with someone who can really help you mentally sort through all of either the trauma or the ways in which you're affected by stress or mental illness, what else do you propose in your book?
Well, first thing I'd want to handle is grief, because grief is a hard thing for a lot of people. And my ability to handle grief was tested on Christmas Eve morning in 2021 when I found my daughter's body in her bedroom. So through the years, because I had a lot of anxiety as a youth, but through the years and when I got married, and I always thought if anything would have happened to my wife or either of my daughters, I'd be absolutely devastated, go to pieces, and I wouldn't be able to function any kind of way. But when this happened to my daughter, I thought about what I had written, and I said, well, I either meant it or I didn't mean it. And if I meant it, then I have to live the way I recommended people live. Yeah. And so what I did was I made a conscious decision. I had a choice. I could either go into despair, or I could have faith and gratitude and say, well, I had my daughter for 37 years. I'm thankful for the fact that I had my daughter for 37 years, and I want to be grateful for her and not fall into despair.
Right.
And, of course, I said a strong prayer. I hope she's in a better place. And I was able to move along.
Yeah.
And so that was the biggest test, because back when I was a youngster, I would go to pieces over the smallest thing. When I got my first girlfriend at the age of 18, and she didn't even break up with me. All she did was go to college. And I was devastated. I can remember calling my counselor and saying, you know, what do I do? She's gone. And now something like as horrendous as this happened, but I've lived a long time since, and I've grown a lot since then. And so I was able to handle it and choose to, well, I had her for 37 years, and thank God for that.
Yeah.
And fortunately for me, and I recommend this to everyone, especially young people, because I lost so many years of my childhood, I decided at an early age to start a diary. So I've been keeping track of my life since 1976. And so across my closet are all the diaries from 76 to the present. So I can at any time go into a diary and go back and relive moments that I had with my deceased daughter, my surviving daughter, my wife. I have meeting my wife and dating my wife and all the places we took. I have them all there. And I recommend it, because if you get to be my age and you have not kept a diary, then you're liable to think, where did it go?
Right.
And it's a very bad feeling to think that you're this old now and you can't remember all the great times. I mean, I can tell you things that both of my daughters said to me over the years, and interactions I've had with my wife. And my only regret is I didn't get my first 2 romances in the diary, because I hadn't started them yet. But that's the only regret, because a diary is a very valuable thing.
Yeah. And you know, there's something to be said for really sifting through our stories, right? And looking on them with either discernment or with love, you know, and really being grateful for where we are. It's that self-knowledge, it's a self-possession, presupposes being able to be a self-gift to someone else. That we have to know about ourselves. We have to accept exactly where we are, and then we also have to be aware of how we interact with people in the world. And I think that's a really important thing, that when we live in a world that's very fast, or seems like there are no consequences, we forget that our words matter, our life matters, our moments matter, the ways in which we give each other ourselves, communicate, our moments of grace, and the ways in which God works in our lives.
The only way to really love someone else, though, is to love yourself. And that's something I lacked as a child. I wasn't trained to love yourself. Jesus said to love your neighbor as yourself. The assumption there is you also have to love yourself.
Yes.
And one thing I find in my many, many years of experience, because I'm a whole lot older than you are, is people don't love themselves and treat themselves well enough. Yeah. I mean, I give an example in the book that I was playing next to a softball. I'm a big softball enthusiast.
I can tell. I see some posters
softball
here.
Softball posters all over the office. And one day I was playing, and the outfielder next to me dropped the ball he should have caught. And he was giving himself such a hard time. And I said, listen, if I had dropped the ball, would you be giving me that hard time? He said, well, of course not. I wouldn't do that to you. I said, well, why are you treating yourself any worse?
Yeah.
I said, the ball was dropped. It's okay. Yeah. Forgive yourself. And that's one thing Jesus said, is love yourself. But he said love your neighbor, but he also said love yourself.
Yeah.
And he also said forgive. And it's very, very, very important not only to forgive others, which is what Jesus mandated, but it's also important to forgive yourself.
Yes.
And people struggle with that, and they make psychoanalysts make all kinds of money because people have difficulty understanding the simple directive, forgive.
Yeah.
That's just a one-word thing. And that includes forgive yourself.
Well, we have that grace of the sacrament of reconciliation that is just such a wonderful mystery in our lives. And it's from the very beginning, you hear the words of another human being saying, go in peace, your sins are forgiven. You know, it's the priest acting in the person of Jesus, but what a gift to be able to bare your soul and then to hear the actual sound of a human voice.
Well, and I've always viewed priests as representatives of God. Mm-hmm. Not only are we asked to forgive others, but we're asked to forgive ourselves. And it's a pretty harsh admonishment, because what Jesus said was that if you forgive, you will be forgiven. Mm-hmm. And if you do not forgive, fill in the blank. So it's like, we got to do this. You got to forgive yourself. You got to treat yourself well. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, you're disobeying Jesus just as much as if you were mistreating somebody else.
Right. So one of the things that you talk about is the ways in which you coped with adversity. And I think that my understanding of what faith is that it's exactly that. It's living life, dealing with adversity, not making it an occasion for sin. It's not taking revenge. It's not going out and being destructive. It's choosing, even in the midst of brokenness and even in the midst of heartbreak, to continue to love, to continue to be grateful, to continue to forgive, to continue to be a positive force in the world, a beacon of light in a dark place.
And find consolation in who you have. Mm-hmm. Because, yes, my daughter did die in 2021, but I still have my wife. I still have my surviving daughter, and I now have a 1-year-old granddaughter. Mm-hmm. So choose to focus on the positive rather than on the negative.
Right.
And I certainly don't call my deceased daughter negative, but even in that, remember the great times with her and smile. I had a person who I went to high school with who lost her daughter at the age of 7. Mm-hmm. And I would see on the Facebook posts every year the daughter's birthday came up, and she would say, we had 7 great years, and we celebrate her. And I thought, what strength? And I said, I don't know if I could have done that back when both of my daughters were 7. I doubt that I could have done that. But I had my daughter for 37 years, so I should be thankful for that.
Yeah.
Instead of being upset about the fact that she's now passed.
Yeah, yeah. So many lives of the saints, even the life of our Blessed Mother, she knew from the time she brought Jesus, from the time she conceived, from the time she brought Jesus to the temple and at the presentation, Simeon said, you're going to have a life full of heartbreak. Your heart is going to be pierced 7 times. And she had to carry it around for 33 years. That's some strength. That there are people who are witnesses of faith to us in so many ways.
Rely on the people who love you. Mm. But one other thing I learned growing up is that you have to love yourself in order to love other people. And you have to understand that you don't want to depend upon anybody. You want to love. In order to love somebody truly, you have to not depend on them. Because I've been there when I was growing up, and I was starting out with romance, which was very late because of my stunted growth in terms of romance. But I generally depended on the girls, and then you realize when you love someone, you're okay by yourself, but you add to someone's life by loving them, mm-hmm. and they add to yours, but they love you. But you can't be dependent on people and have a successful relationship.
Absolutely, yeah.
I also wanted to go into depression and sadness because I experienced the depression, but of course I've seen children at various stages of my more than 20 years of being a principal who've been suicidal. And one thing I've learned is get help. Mm-hmm. I just dialed 988, which is a national suicide prevention line, because I anticipated going on this podcast and I didn't want to advertise something that doesn't work. But it works just fine. Mm-hmm. If you dial 988, you'll get a counselor within about 5 minutes.
Right.
And they'll counsel you through whatever crisis you're going through. Now, there was no such thing as 988 back in the 60s when I was growing up.
Right.
But there is one now, so 988. But the other thing I know about depression from what I've experienced and what I've seen, both in myself and in students, is that you're never really at your lowest point. If you're at your lowest point and you just wait a while, it's going to get better.
Right.
So, because I know people sometimes take their life when they're at their lowest point and they don't realize that you just wait, it's going to get better. Right. So that's something that I can tell you from experience. I
think that even when people feel like there's no help, there's always hope. And I don't say that as a Pollyanna person. I say that as somebody who's fought hard to hope in really dark places in my life as well. And I think that no matter who you are, there's always people who care about how you care for yourself. And So don't do anything that, would...
You can't undo.
Yeah.
One of the best antidotes for depression I have found is helping other people. Mm-hmm. If you do something that helps someone else out and you see their reaction, I mean, even as a principal, I say I have 2 daughters, but I have 550 children because the children here are all my children.
Right.
And when I do something that benefits them, it gives me a good feeling. And when you're depressed and you're able to do something that positively helps somebody else out, that really is a great antidote for depression. It's not only good for the person you help, but it's also for the giver.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. That's a gift for ourselves, right? That we can find meaning, we can find purpose, and we can find the way forward for that. Yeah.
My grandmother, who lived to be 99, used to say that, I'll live as long as I can be useful. Mm-hmm. I always want to be useful. And if I can be useful, then, what can I get you? What can I do for you? Unfortunately, she had Alzheimer's the last 10 years of her life, but as long as she was conscious and as long as she was always looking to help other people.
Yep.
And she was my absolute model.
I don't know how much of the book you want to give.
Oh, absolutely.
All right,
and I also and I give the book away. All I have to do is be asked.
I know you gave it to me.
So I'm not looking for money. It's not for sale. It's just that to have something that happened to me the way it happened to me, it really makes me upset to think that nobody will be helped by it. I'm hoping that somebody will be helped by it. One thing I've also learned is that sadness and happiness are both based on your expectations. Because if your expectations are greater than or equal to, if your experience, I wrote it out here, if your experience is greater than or equal to your expectations, then you're happy. And if your experience is less than your expectation, you're sad. So you wonder why there are people who are wealthy who are sad. It's because they've grown up wealthy and they have high expectations. So anytime you go below those expectations, now they're miserable.
Right.
And you also wonder why people who don't have as much are happy. Well, think of this. If you're blind, for instance, and all of a sudden you get to be able to see, something that all of us take for granted makes that person very happy because their expectation was they weren't going to be able to see.
Right.
So to me, you control your happiness to the point where if you adjust your expectations to be realistic.
Right.
If you expect to be a professional sports star and you don't meet it, now you're going to be miserable. If when I'm playing softball 20, 30 years ago when I was hitting home runs, if I keep expecting to hit home runs and now I can't hit home runs anymore, I got to adjust my expectations. I'm older. Go for singles, go for doubles. And if you adjust your expectations, you have a good time. If you don't adjust your expectations, you're kicking yourself in the teeth because you're trying to attain something that's not attainable. Yeah. So one key to happiness, in my view, is to adjust your expectations and make them realistic. Absolutely.
Yeah. I love that idea. I feel like it's connected to something that I love from baseball. One of my favorite pitchers is David Cohen from the Mets. Mm-hmm. And he was asked one time, what is his secret to an incredibly long career? And he said, I never threw as hard as I could. Mm. He always left something in the tank, but he never went for broke in order to risk hurting himself. It just always kept something back, and because of that, he was always able to have a longer career. I'm a musician by trade, so I've never sung as loud as I could. I've never sung the highest note. I've tried to sing high, but I've never sung as high as I could, just because I don't want to do damage that means that I couldn't sing tomorrow.
Just set your expectations realistically.
Yeah,
and if you set realistic expectations, I think you'll be a happier person. Just a couple of additional things I wanted to hit before we wrap up. One thing is fear. I was always an anxious, fearful child. And one thing I've grown to learn is that you conquer fear with faith. There's a quote from Jesus that says, know that I am with you through it all. Mm-hmm. And that's a quote that I believe. So God is with you, and I take strength in prayer, and I take strength in trying to be faithful. And the other thing is regrets. Regrets are inevitable. Everybody has regrets. Nobody has done everything they wish to do. Mm-hmm. And my advice there would be do what you can with what you have, and understand that the past cannot be changed. So you just have to accept the past. And if you're if for instance, you drive too fast and have an accident and now you're hurt, in addition to the pain, there's also guilt because you drove too fast. That goes back to forgive yourself. Jesus said I believe that there's nothing unforgivable. So do the best you can, and if you messed up, forgive yourself. And the only other thing I want to do, because I'm out of my notes, is in my book, which I will send to anybody who asks me for it. I'm going to give you an email address, but I'll send the book to anybody who wants it. Because when my daughter died, I actually sent an email to the whole staff here. And I said, I wrote something that gives me strength, and if anybody would like to see it, I wasn't presumptuous enough to send it to everybody.
Right.
But maybe 4 or 5 people asked for it, and I sent it to them because the whole idea behind it is to help. But one of the things I wrap up that I detail in the book is that I believe the Lord has been with me every step I've had things happen for me that are just unbelievable. They cannot be ascribed to coincidence. I'll give you just a few examples, and then I'm going to tell you, read the book. 1972, my mother finally threw my father out of the house. My father was an alcoholic, so he used to drive me to his new home in Queens, and then he would drink, because that's what my dad did, was drink. Then he would drive me home and go back to Queens. The fact that I'm sitting here is a miracle, because the drunk driving was not enforced like it was back in the 70s.
Right.
And Lord was watching over me the whole time, from Queens to Yonkers, and then from Yonkers back to Queens. He drove. It was just amazing to me that he didn't get into an accident. Back in the early 70s still, a lot of us were sweating the draft. People that listening now probably don't know what a draft is, but they were forcing young men to go across the world to kill people. And that caused me great anxiety for a couple of reasons. First, because I didn't want to go in any war. And second, because I didn't want to kill anybody. I considered it morally reprehensible to kill somebody. Well, coincidentally, although it wasn't such a coincidence, I think, the draft ended 2 weeks before my 18th birthday. So you can look it up. It was April of 73, and I turned 18 in May of 73. Even my own career, my 9th grade math teacher turned me on to math, and I wanted to become a math teacher. And then in college, I couldn't handle the college math, so I switched my major to psychology, and I thought I'd never be a teacher. And it turns out I got a job in a psychiatric hospital to begin on October the 3rd of 1977. And coincidentally, I was having lunch in a luncheonette in Yonkers that I never ate at. I never used to go to this luncheonette. And I saw a newspaper commercial. The teachers will get upset with me at this, but there was a teacher strike up in northern Westchester. And they said, come and teach for us for $100 a day. Well, back in 1977, $100 a day was a lot of money. And I had the month of September to kill because I wasn't supposed to start my job till October 3rd. So I went up and taught. And then October 3rd came, and I said, well, I have to go and work in the psychiatric hospital now because that's my career. And I went and worked in the psychiatric hospital. Worked there 2 weeks and got fired. After I got fired from the psychiatric hospital, I went back to the teaching. They not only put me back in the classroom, they put the lady who took my place on hall duty. I'll never forget this. And they put me back in the classroom. And at the end of the strike, which ended sometime in November, the assistant principal said, why aren't you a teacher? You're so good at it. What happened? And I said, well, I couldn't handle the math. I had thought that I needed a math major to be a math teacher. He said, you don't need a math major. All you need is 18 credits. I said, really? I said, I've already got 12. So I went back to school, got my 6 credits, my career was born. But all of these coincidences, which I don't believe were coincidences, then since I came over to New Jersey, I had to go to school. I had to go to Kane University to get some credits to get my certificate up. I stayed in school and got my supervisor certificate. Got my supervisor certificate in 1985. In 1985, my immediate supervisor resigned. And I got his job. Now, if he had resigned earlier, I wouldn't have been certified for it. They would have had somebody else for it. If he had resigned later. So I just look at it as the Lord's been holding my hand the whole time.
Right.
And so when my daughter died in 2021, I said, well, I can't understand it, but I don't think the Lord stopped holding my hand.
No.
And I'll give you one last example. When my parents were having their marital issues, because my father was my father, I prayed and prayed and prayed that my parents would stay together. And when my mother threw them out, at the time, I thought my prayers weren't answered. But that's when my life began. Mm-hmm. When my father left the house, that's when I started with romance. That's when I started with my life.
Right.
Because remember, I had been repressed before then. That's when I got my counseling. The bottom line is God knew better.
Right.
And so when you think your prayers aren't answered, it's not necessarily that. It's just that your prayers, God knew better, and God did what's best for you.
Right.
And so I'm continue to be convinced that even after the tragedy of 2021, that God's still looking out for us. And if you give to God, and the way we give to God is to give to other people, that they're His representatives, I don't believe God will be outdone. I think God will give back.
Always. No one outdoes God in His generosity. Amen. Dr. Howard, Dr. Walker, this has been an incredible conversation. I really just want to thank you for that.
No, thank you. And I'm going to end with my email address. It's F as in Frank, AWLTYTENNIS @AOL.com. So FAWLTYTENNIS @AOL.com. And since I get a lot of junk email, if you use as a subject, live life well, I'll know to open that email, and I'll know to send you the book.
Amen. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you. Can we pray together before we go?
We can.
Okay. Do you want to lead us in an Our Father?
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed is your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
Thank you so much. From the Heart of the Ark, this has been Jennifer Benke with Dr. Howard Walker. God bless you all, and have a lovely evening.
Heart of the Ark podcast is an initiative by the Office for Evangelization at the Archdiocese of Newark. If you want to find us online, you can find us at rcan.org/evangelization. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. Very soon we'll be updating our social media for the Heart of the Ark, but you can find us on Fireside Podcasts at heartoftheark.fireside.fm. Our theme song is composed by and orchestrated by Eric Hunter, a dear friend of mine. You can find out more about Eric and his performances and compositions at Eric, ERIC, Hunter, HUNTER, music.com. This has been a pleasure, and I look forward to hearing from you and speaking with you in the future.